Indicator 29.1, samples and surveys. And I'm going to go back one and then I'll go forward again real quick just so everybody at home can see. This is the name of our indicator here, indicator 29.1, samples and surveys. And we're talking about quantitative versus qualitative. So there's a lot of different ways that you can describe a survey, okay, or a poll. So one of the, and we're going to be doing this a lot. We're going to be talking about a lot of different ways that you can describe a poll. So the first way is this quantitative versus qualitative. So quantitative, think quantity, right? It can be counted. It can be measured. It's described numerically, right? So some examples, the few here are good. Test scores, right? If you describe your test score to me, you'd say I got a 98%. It can be described using a measure or a quantity, a number, your age, your time, your weight. Couple of other examples that were here in my notes: height, shoe size, length of hair. Okay, those are all things that can be measured and described numerically. That's the two important things there. Qualitative, think about qualities of people, right? So qualities would be, what sports do you play? Now this is kind of a tricky one here. Okay, zip code. Yes, it's a number, but it can't be measured, right? So don't just get in the habit of thinking number is quantitative, and if it's a number, it's automatically quantitative. You can't count a zip code, right? Yes, a zip code is numbers, so is a phone number, but you can't measure it. So the sport you play, the zip code you live in, your hair color, characteristics, short, tall. It's ways you would describe a quality that you would describe somebody or something using, okay? All right, so quantity, quantitative, those can be counted, measured. Qualitative, it's describing something, qualities of something. All right, so let's look, and you don't have to write this down. This is just discussion, okay? And we'll kind of move around the room, make sure everybody has a chance to participate here. Is each set qualitative or quantitative? So how about favorite movie? Raise your hand if you think favorite movie is qualitative. It's a quality of somebody. What's their favorite movie? Okay. Quantitative means you'd have to be able to measure it, right? The length of it. That doesn't work. All right. Number of students in different school who take Spanish. Raise your hand if you think it's qualitative. Quantitative? Good. It can be counted. Very good. Football jersey number. So if you play football, if you're talking about so-and-so wears this jersey number, so-and-so wears this jersey number. Qualitative or quantitative? First, raise your hand if you think it's qualitative. Okay, and then raise your hand if you think it's quantitative. Now, most of you didn't vote. Come on now. Qualitative or quantitative? Raise your hand if you think it's qualitative. There's a few more hands. Right, even though it's a number, right, it can't be measured or counted. Now, if you asked how many jerseys were on the field, that would be quantitative because then you're counting a quantity. But qualitative, it's just describing their jersey, just like if you'd say it's purple or short sleeve or has stripes on it or whatever. The jersey number, just because it's a number, it's still qualitative. All right, good there? Pretty straightforward. All right, this is another way that you can describe data. Univariate versus bivariate. I'll give you a minute to get this written down. Of course, if you're at home, pause the video if you need to get things written down. Think unicycle, right? One wheel. Univariate is a set of data that uses only one variable. And I don't have it on here. It's not on here, so I'll give you some examples. Hair color, right? That's one thing I'm describing about you. So if I did a poll and I said, what is the hair color of all the students in the school? And does anybody know how many students are at SMS? No? Anybody? I don't know either. That's something I probably have to figure out. Well, at the high school, there's usually about 400. So if we did a survey and we looked and saw the hair color of everybody in the building, and we got red hair, blonde hair, brown hair, black hair, whatever. And that's univariate because we're only looking at one variable about our survey. Bivariate, think bicycle, right? 2 wheels, a set of data that uses 2 variables. So if we looked at people's hair color and their height, then that's 2 variables. So we're looking at 2 things about our sample set. And so an example of that given here is engine size and mileage of a car. So if we're looking at used vehicles and we're comparing the engine size and the miles that is on the car, then that would be a bivariate example. So make sure you have at least one example written down in each one of the examples here. Now, on your note sheet, I do want to jump up just a little bit here because I just noticed we kind of passed it. And I think you guys are pretty straight on this. But if you look at your note sheet under example 1, classify data as quantitative or qualitative, what'd you guys put for favorite music genre? Qualitative or quantitative? Peyton, what'd you put? What would you classify favorite music genre? We're going back up. Sorry, I just realized we skipped it. We're going back up to qualitative or quantitative. Favorite music, would you say that can be counted as quantities or just a description of somebody? Yes, qualitative. Good. Sam, how about number of students taking French? Quantitative. It can be counted. Good. Chloe, how about jersey number of varsity sports? I gave you the easy one. We've already done this one. What is it? Well, yeah, qualitative. It's just a description of the jersey. Very good. Let's see. Caleb, how about cost of CDs? Quantitative, because it can be measured or counted, right? This CD is $10, this CD is $12, whatever. All right. Let's see. Luke, how about eye color? Qualitative, is that what you said? It's kind of hard to hear. Yeah, eye color is qualitative. It's just a quality about somebody that you describe, okay? Can't be measured or described with a number. And described with a number, I should say. All right, how about Aiden McCammon, time from a 5K? Qualitative or quantitative?
Quantitative.
Yeah, it's a number and it can be measured, right? Very good. All right. Now let's jump back down to univariate and bivariate. So univariate, 1 variable, bivariate, 2 variables. That's very, very straightforward. Let's look at those examples there. Identify types of data. Height and weight of a student. Cameron, what do you think? What? Examples to identify data as bivariate or univariate. And I'm looking at A, height and weight of a student. Yes, bivariate. Good. Okay, height and weight, 2 things we're looking at, so it's bivariate. All right, Jade, I'm going to give you the hard one. Dollar of internet from 7 providers. It's kind of throws a little bit of a trick at you here, but. Well, we're looking at bivariate or univariate. Cost of the internet from 7 providers. Are we looking at 1 variable or 2? And this is kind of a trick one, actually. Does it matter how many people you survey? If I survey 5 providers or 100 providers, what am I looking at? The cost, and that's univariate. Okay? Kind of threw a hard one at you there. Yeah, so be careful to think about what they're asking you because right here it kind of seemed like it would be bivariate because it was the cost of the internet and 7 providers. But we're not comparing those 2 things to each other. It's just telling you how many people they surveyed or how many providers they surveyed. So it doesn't matter if you survey 5 providers or 100 providers. The only data that we're looking at is the cost of the internet. Okay, so you kind of have to watch it when it gets a little tricky. All right, and this is kind of broke up on your paper. So right there at the bottom of your paper, it says population, and then on the other side, it says sample. We're going to look at what the difference between those means. Oh, we got a couple other examples here of univariate and bivariate. That's kind of cool. All right, let's see. Let's run through this real quick before we write down the example or the definitions. Who haven't I talked to? JC. The atomic weights of the elements in the periodic table. Univariate or bivariate? Yeah, univariate. Even though there's a bunch of elements, that doesn't matter. All you're looking at is their atomic weight. Very good. Jaden, how about the edge lengths and volumes of cubes? Yeah, lengths and volumes. So we're looking at bivariate there. Aiden Cox, how about height and weight of mammals? Bivariate, good. And Ike, how about the cost of internet? We already did this one. The cost of internet from several different providers. The one on our paper said 7 different providers, but it doesn't matter. What is it? Univariate. There we go. You really did get the easy one. All right. Let's see. Now, the definition, I think that's what's coming up. Yeah, the definition of a population. The entire group that you want information about. So if I surveyed all the students at SMS, that would be the population. If I surveyed the entire neighborhood I lived in, that would be the population. Okay? Means everybody, it doesn't mean everybody obviously in the entire world. It just means everybody in that group, your neighborhood, your school, your sports team, your fill in the blank, everybody at the airport on a Tuesday. That's a population. Okay? A sample, and if you think about this, you know, you've got a big cake at your population. If you sample the cake, do you eat the whole thing? Well, okay, you might. Should you eat the whole thing? If you're going to sample a cake, right, you just take one bite. That's the same idea here. When a population is too large to survey, statisticians, that just means people collecting the data, survey a part of it to find characteristics of the whole. And it's called a sample. Give everybody a minute to write this down. And that's a lot of words. I guess really we could have just shortened that up. It's just a part of a population, a portion of a population. Okay, a small part. All right, so if I wanted to know the favorite sport of students at SMS, and I asked everybody in the school, that would be a population survey. If I wanted to know the favorite sport of everybody in the school, but I just asked the 8th graders, right, just to get an idea, that would be a sample size. So I want to know the data from the whole school, but I'm only going to ask a smaller section, right? Or I'm only going to ask this class. Maybe I want to know the average study time of 8th graders, but I ask you guys, what's your average study time? Okay, that would be a sample size of the population. The population would be all 8th graders. The sample size would be our first period class. Okay. Any questions there between sample and survey, or population and sample? Good there? All right. So when you are sampling, there's a couple of different ways to do it. And we'll talk about each one of these here. So random means you survey a population at random. It's pretty straightforward, right? I'm walking through the halls with a clipboard and I'm just randomly grabbing students as they walk by and saying, what's your favorite sport? Okay? Draw it from a hat, very randomly picking it. No rhyme or reason. I'm not picking girls. I'm not picking boys. Tall, short, nothing. Okay? Very random. Systematic, it kind of looks weird the way it's worded, but it says select a number. We'll call that number n. And then you survey the nth person. All that means is, let's say I pick 5. Then that means I'm going to survey the 5th person that walks down my hallway. That is systematic. There's a system to my picking, right? Systematic. So I select number 5 at random, and then I survey every 5th person. And the example they give for stratified is perfect here. So stratified is that you've got a population and then you divide that population up into smaller groups. And then you randomly select people in that group. And the example they give here is perfect. Separate a high school into 4 groups by grade level and then survey a random sample of students from each grade. Okay? So I cannot sample everybody at Sullivan Middle School, but I can randomly survey some 8th graders, some 7th graders, and some 6th graders to get an idea. Okay, that's stratified. And stratified, even though it's listed third, it's kind of, there's random, which is just no rhyme or reason. There's systematic, which is very, very stringent. Okay, it has to be the 5th person. Stratified is a little of both. You separate people into groups, but then you guess, then you go random after that. Again, at home, if you need to, pause the video so that you can get things written down in your notes. All right, so there, do I need to wait a sec? I still see a few pencils going. I'll wait. It's a little late. All right, so there where it says example 3, choosing a sample, okay, we're going to kind of ask ourselves, we have to, this isn't all cut and dry. Some of it's opinion, some of it, if you argued your point, I'd probably give you points either way. Some of it's more straightforward. So, but we're with this indicator, you kind of have to think through situations. It's not just cut and dry, you know. That's why I like math, right? 2 plus 2, it's just 4. That's just your answer. There's no doubt about it. There's no, I don't know. That's why I love math. So that's why I said if you really love math, this probably won't be one of your your favorite indicators. But let's look there at example 3, choosing a sample. So you want to find out if the students enjoyed the SHS homecoming dance. Okay, that's the data that you're wanting to collect. You interview every 10th stranger you see at the mall. I'm sorry, teenager. You interview every 10th teenager you see at the mall. So there's 2 questions here. First, what sampling method are you using? Somebody that hasn't answered yet. Who haven't I picked on yet? Caden, what sampling method are we using by interviewing every 10th teenager? Systematic. Yes, systematic, right? We've picked a number. We're interviewing every 10th one. Now, this part is kind of your, not really opinion, because there's a right or a wrong answer, but you kind of have to think through it. Is this a good sample or a good survey? What do you guys think? Layla, you shook your head no. How come? Yeah, they may not go to SHS. Or does every teenager go to the mall? Right? No, yeah, this is definitely not a good way to determine if most SHS students enjoyed the homecoming dance or not. Okay, very good. All right, so the second one says you revise your plan and you interview all students leaving school wearing purple and gold on Friday. Will this plan give you a good sample and explain? So first of all, let's look at what kind of survey is this. And this one, let's see, you interview all students leaving school wearing purple and gold. So are we random, systematic, or stratified first of all? Noble, what do you think? Yeah. We're stratified. We're definitely not random. We're picking them out because they're wearing purple and gold. So it's definitely not random. And it's not the every nth person. So it cannot be systematic. Stratified means we're taking a smaller section of a bigger population. And in this case, we're choosing whether or not they're wearing purple and gold to ask them. All right. And then it says, will this give us a good sample? Explain why not. What do you guys think? Will this give us a good sample? Ike, you're shaking your head no. How come?
Because just because they're wearing purple and gold doesn't mean they enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever. I mean, it has absolutely no bearing on whether or not they went to the dance, whether or not they enjoyed the dance. So no, this would not give us a good survey. If we wanted a good survey, what would be a way we could do it? I mean, if there's really no right or, I mean, there's a right or wrong answer, but there's several right answers. Yeah. Yeah. Survey the people who attended the dance. And then you could do it random, systematic, or stratified, right? You could interview randomly some fifth grade or fifth. That's a weird high school dance. Randomly some ninth, some 10th, some 11th, and some 12th graders that went to the dance. Or you could just randomly pick anybody that went to the dance. Or you could ask every fifth person that went to the dance, right? So, but asking people that actually went to the dance, that would be a good way to actually gather the data that you're looking for. Very good. All right. Let's see. So the last thing we're going to talk about, I don't even know if it's on this slide. Let's see. This says you want to find out how many DVDs, you don't have to write this down. You want to find out how many DVDs students at your school rent in a month. You interview every 10th teenager you see at the mall. It's kind of like the example we already had. What sample method are we using, and is it a good sample? So first of all, what sample are we using? Ashton, what do you think?
Systematic.
Yep, systematic, because we're interviewing every 10th person. And what do you guys think? Good sample? Nope, same reason as the other. We're at the mall. We're not interviewing students at your school, so it's not a good sample. All right, you revise your plan and you interview all the students leaving a school assembly who are wearing school colors. That's the exact same thing. We've already done that. All right, obviously the person who filled this out probably was looking at this. All right, so the last thing you need to write down is bias. Okay, and I think it's actually written down for you. A survey is biased when it contains assumptions that may or may not be true. It can influence opinion. Okay, so that is already written down for you. We talk in my current events class, we talk a lot about bias because media bias is probably one of the, more prevalent biases that you have in society. But if you have two news stations, one that always leans conservative and one always leans liberal, they're going to have bias, right? And the example I always use in my current events class is a conservative newspaper would report President Trump saves a baby kitten from the roadway. Okay? Sounds like a pretty straightforward headline. How could that be misconstrued? A liberal headline, who obviously liberals did not like Trump, a liberal headline might lead with President Trump grabs kitten by hind legs. Now, if you just heard that, does it sound like he's being pretty mean to the kitten? Same story, right? He runs into the road. He grabs the kitten by the hind legs. He jerks her out of the road, right? Conservative says President Trump is a hero because he saved a baby kitten. Liberal says President Trump yanks baby kitten around by his hind legs. Same story, same thing happening, definitely bias happening. You can have bias in surveys, okay? And if you want to elicit a certain response from people, you could word your survey in a certain way, okay? So if I was to ask you, do you like yummy, delicious candy or do you like nasty vegetables? Am I really wanting your opinion? Am I leading you in any way? Am I trying to influence your answer, right? Most people would say, oh, I like delicious candy. Who's going to say, oh, I love yucky vegetables? So you can word surveys in a certain way. So we're going to look at a couple examples here. Do you prefer exciting action movies or boring documentaries? Do you think this has bias? Definitely. Okay, you're asserting your own description of action movies and documentaries. You're saying exciting and boring. Anytime you have words like that are qualifiers, you're pretty much inserting bias in there. Okay, here's another one. Since global warming is a big problem, do you support government funding on global warming studies? What do you think? Does this have bias? Yeah, you're already stating your stance that there's a problem. So now if you ask them if they support funding, you're pretty much saying you're a big jerk and you don't care because it's obviously a big problem. So yes, that definitely has bias. Where do you like to vacation? Bias or no bias? No bias. Not trying to lead anybody, not giving any information to begin with, just a straight up question. Okay? That's pretty much it for indicator 29.1. Okay? Surveys and samples and surveys. The assignment, and I haven't attached it yet, or I haven't uploaded it yet because I want to upload the video real quick. So give me just a few seconds to do that. But your assignment is on Cami. There's no math to do. It's just text box. So here in a second, once I tell you it's uploaded, you're going to go on the assignment. You're going to click the load button on Cami. And then, like I said, it's all text answers. So you're just going to insert text boxes next to every problem and type. Now, you have to be mindful with this assignment. You need to be mindful what each section is asking you, okay? Because like we've already discussed, and I'm looking at the example here, there's a lot of different ways you can describe a survey or a sample. So you need to read each set of directions carefully to ask you which particular one. Like the first section says determine whether it's qualitative or quantitative. Okay. Then the next section says is it univariate and bivariate. Once you get to the is it univariate and bivariate, you're not going to be answering qualitative or quantitative. That obviously makes sense, but I just wanted to call your attention to really be mindful of each section's directions. Determine whether or not the sampling is random, systematic, or stratified. And then it also says tell what method would produce a good sample. And then I just want you to be mindful of this. On page 1, it says determine whether each question is biased. Explain your answer. Make sure you explain your answer. If you just put yes or no, okay, that doesn't answer the question. You need to know bias or unbiased and then explain why you answered that way. And then what I was going to point out was that 17, 18, and then it continues 19, 20, 21 on the back. So those same directions go with those. And then the last section is in each situation, identify the population and sample, tell whether or not it's random, systematic, or stratified. And then the bottom, it says qualitative, quantitative, and univariate and bivariate. So just really be mindful of each section's directions. Some of them ask for multiple things, and each section asks for a different response, okay? All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video. For those of you at home, if you have any questions, please email me.